We are almost at capacity. We have 94 folks on the call. That is absolutely awesome. Great. Find you, Jeff. Okay, Joe, so I just made you the host. So if you could monitor the waiting room now and allow those that come on, that would be great.
Yep. They need to paint on Wednesday.
And Joe, if you could go ahead, because I can't mute folks now, so if you could go ahead and mute those folks that are not muted, with the exception of our teachers of the year. Great. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to start right on time so we have the full amount of time. Good morning and welcome everyone. My name is Carol Ciato. I'm the District Director for Shape America Eastern District. We're thrilled and excited that so many of you have joined us this morning for our discussion on re-entry to school and talking about teaching strategies that would hopefully be applicable to you as you are continuing to think about your plans for re-entry. We have some great toys with us, Teachers of the Year, that are going to share some of their ideas on what they have planned for the fall and their return to school. Without further ado, I would like to turn the platform over to President John Batista. He's the current president of Shape America Eastern District. He will be your moderator and host for this morning's session. If you happen to have any questions at any time, please put them in the chat. Joe Asmus, who is our student member at large for Eastern District, will be monitoring the chat room, so he'll be able to share any of your questions with the moderator that you can ask the toys or the whole group at large. The first hour will be dedicated to the panelists, and then the second hour we will open it up to the floor for open discussion amongst all of you. Again, thank you so much for being with us this morning, and we hope that you enjoy the session and have some great takeaways. The floor is yours, John.
Good morning, everyone. I am psyched to be here. I just love all the faces here. We're from all over the country, I guess. I was thinking the Eastern District, but it looks like we have some people from far, far away, which is great. It's a beautiful day here in Connecticut. It's a sparkling day in Connecticut, actually, and I hope it is where you guys are. Joe, we're going to put up that PowerPoint now. So here's a PowerPoint. This is a document that's on Shape America website. That's ours right now. There we go. There we go. This is called Shape America School Reentry Considerations. Maybe some of you have seen that. It's on the Shape America website. Like I said, it's a helpful guide for administrators, staff, and teachers. And it focuses mainly on the three different models as we go back to school in the fall. Okay, Joe. This also was another document there. It's a teaching strategies workshop. This provides various strategies for health and PE. It's a great document. I hope you take advantage of that if you haven't already. There we go. School reentry. There's many school reentry resources on there that you should avail yourself of. And the last one. There also are webinars on there, and these webinars are related to SHAPE's reentry document. They're presented by teachers and some SHAPE teacher of the year winners, and they share their plans and their best practices for returning to teaching in the fall. Okay. And this document here that's on the screen right now is the Eastern District came up with a document for the health and PE and physical activity. And it's just a great resource for you guys. This provides critical info, statistics, resources regarding health and PE teaching. Okay. All right. Well, after that's done, let's talk about our panelists. I have the pleasure of introducing two great panelists today. Our first is Miguel Regan. I hope I said her last name right. She's from New York. She was the 2020 Elementary Physical Education Eastern District Teacher of the Year. And the other panelist is a 2015 National Teacher of the Year, Shape America National Teacher of the Year, Betty Fish, who was from Pennsylvania. They could say a little bit more about themselves when we start, if they would like. Now, Betty, you want to say anything else? You want to talk about yourself a little bit?
Sure. I teach in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania at FCH Academy, which is an independent school, pre-K through 12. And I teach at the elementary level, although I do have the advantage of seeing all the kids throughout their high school career. So it is kind of a unique situation. It's also single sex up to 8th grade. So that's another little caveat, a little bit different. Going into my 33rd year, and I definitely feel like I am a first-year teacher doing this all over because, of course, we weren't trained for this, and we really don't know. There's so many unknowns out there. So I'm feeling like that first-year teacher starting all over again and trying to get my groove and figure out how things are going to operate. So a little bit about me. I'm also an open national trainer, which provides me opportunities to share some knowledge that I have and also what Open's doing. So a little bit about me.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Miguel, how about you?
So my name is Miguel Regan, and I live in Manhattan, but I teach on Long Island, Port Washington School District. So I'm doing the reverse commute, though you would never know it by the amount of time I spend in the car. And we were pretty much so blindsided as everybody else here was. What is the expression that people are saying? Building the plane as we're flying it. So we had a lot of bumps in the road. We're still having a lot of bumps in the road. Good amount of my summer has been spent being on different reopening task forces within the school and the school district and trying to plan and figure things out. It's been an interesting ride. I've been teaching in Port Washington since 1990. So I'm just maybe a little bit behind you, Betty Ann, with the number of years. And secretly a little bit excited to see how this year goes because it's so new and fresh. And hopefully we'll come away with some really great, new, innovative ways of reaching our kids.
Okay, thank you so much. So before we start, I want to make sure that everybody on the session knows that it is being recorded, and then it'll be sent to the state EDs with a YouTube link. So if you want to review it or catch it later, you can do that also. So my first question today is, and Betty Ann, maybe we can start with you. Can you share what your experience was was like this past spring teaching
Sure.
remote? I mean, what did you find we worked well for you? What did you find challenging?
I was in a unique situation that our school started planning in January for a lot of this, just thinking that we may transition and pivot after spring break. So some things were in place. In terms of phys ed, most of the things that were being put in place prior to our spring break, which was for us it was in March, and we just went out 4 days earlier. So we went out on March 12th. So there was a lot of discussion and a lot of documents being made. Again, I am pre-K through 12, so especially at middle and the high school level, where teachers were making a 2-week plan. So when we returned from spring break, if we had to be 2 weeks online, they had lessons ready to go. For me in PE, we weren't quite, it wasn't quite as clear what was going to happen. Would we meet with students on our regular rotation? How many times would we see students? What was the expectation? So I tried to make things, I like to strive for progress, not perfection, has become my new motto. I used to strive for perfection. So there were many takes of my videos that I was trying to send home for students. I set up a whole activity in the front yard. The gust of wind came, all the cars blew down the street. I'm chasing them. Stopped my video, retook it again, redid it again. I live in a townhouse development. My neighbors are out. What are you doing? I'm like, trying to make content. They're like, we want to take your class with you. Can we join you in the street? I'm like, join me in the street, whatever, because we were all in the same boat. But I learned quickly that, we have to be real for the kids. So next time something went wrong, I was like, okay, take 2. We're just going to reset this, re-trigger it, because for most of the kids, the same thing was going to happen at home. So the most challenging was trying to get a rhythm and groove for how I was going to present my lessons to students at the elementary level. I was fortunate. We went to a rotation. I only saw my first grade once every 7 days, which was really unfortunate. So I did a lot of choice boards to share the different activities for them to do at home. But my pre-K and K students, I saw much more frequently every other day. So I was developing quite a lot of content. And it took me a long time to get into that groove. Was I supposed to do 30 minutes? I had 30 minutes on their schedule. It wasn't synchronous, it was asynchronous. That in the afternoon at 1 to 1:30 was departmental. And I didn't feel really clear on whether I was supposed to be in front for 30 minutes and deliver something, or was 10 minutes good enough and then send them off for 20 minutes. We all struggled with no equipment at home, so I tried to front load in my morning meetings when I saw students in their homeroom. You're going to need a sock ball, you're going to need a laundry basket, some of the typical things you saw from other educators out there. So I feel like that was a big learning curve. I don't think I hit it perfectly. I tried to make things fun. I wanted it to be fun and joyful for them, not to just be staring at me in front of the screen. So I found a sweet spot, maybe 8 to 12 minutes of me actually on the screen, and then allowing students to go out and do things. I was a big proponent in Pennsylvania, we were all, shelter in place, however they called it. So I wanted them to do a lot with families, especially with the young students, so they could spend some family time and get that physical activity. I think moving into this year, I'll shorten my videos and then have them try to do more work on their own or with their family. I'm hopeful we start as of, August 10th. We're supposed to go back September 8th in person. I would love to get at least a week under the belt just to kind of see faces and train them on the digital tools if I'm fortunate enough to do that. So I had challenges, no doubt about it. We just tried to make things work. And I think the biggest, another challenge for me was I didn't know if anybody was watching the videos or doing it, because I wasn't charged with assessing them at that point and doing a formal assessment. So every once in a while I got emails with videos, which brought me hope that people were doing this at home and sharing things, and kids that brought me joy when I saw students' faces doing the activity, and they were so excited. Miss Fish, look what I did. you know, and even if it was learning how to ride their bike, they were still excited. And that's what we want. I want that lifelong skill and joy of movement. So just a quick couple things, we can circle back to others. And I'll send it over to Miguel, I think.
Right.
Sorry, just had to unmute. Yeah, I mean, so much of what Betty just said, I mean, I don't even have to say anything. No, that's just not true. But we did not have any time to prepare going into it. We were in school on Thursday, March 12th, and throughout the day, there were little murmurings that we might be shutting down. And then the announcement came towards the end of the day, no school Friday or Monday. And that was that. So off we went. I had a feeling it was going to go longer than that. So I cleaned out my fridge, you know, packed up a few things that I thought I might need and went on home. And then Friday and Monday turned into Tuesday, turned into 2 weeks, turned into, and we were going, those of you from New York know that we were waiting for Governor Cuomo's announcement. You know, when is he going to close schools down entirely? And it went in those 2 week increments. So the planning was sort of like in 2 week bursts, and it was evolving, and the direction from the district was evolving as we went too. So we started out, probably what worked best for us and really saved me was we have a fantastic elementary team in Port Washington. And so we were constantly talking with each other and trying to figure out what we were doing. So that was very, very helpful. That really strong collaboration. The Twitter community, without a doubt, if you're not on Twitter, you must get there almost instantly, because it has been like a life raft. There's just so much information out there, overwhelming at times, but you know, a great, great, great resource. Over the course of the next couple of months, my entire school went to Google Classroom. That was our platform. And fortunately, I had taken a class years ago, so I wasn't completely lost as to how to do it. So we started with the Google Classrooms. Big challenge was getting the kids to sign on to the Google Classrooms for PE. And that was tough. That took a super long time. And even by the end of the school year, we probably only had about 75% that had signed on to the PE and other special area Google Classrooms. We didn't push too hard because we were considering ourselves in an emergency situation and didn't know what the families were going through and why they weren't signing on. So I was not picking up the phone and saying, hey, how come you haven't put your kid in PE Google Classroom, only to find out that they had lost their jobs, lost a loved one. So we wanted to keep in mind all the time that this was an emergency situation and be respectful of the families and what they might be going through. Of the kids that signed on to our PE Google Classroom, I'm going to say maybe 30% participated on a more or less regular basis. So that was the biggest challenge, was to try to get the kids involved. And moving forward, if we do go virtual, there'll be other strategies that we can hopefully get more kids and families involved. It was hard, you know, as an educator to see that so few kids were doing it, but understandable as well because of the situation. We had a lot of special activities that we always do in the spring, and we didn't want the kids to miss them, because that's, you know, those are the things that they love and talk about years on down the line. Oh my gosh, do you remember field day? So thank you, Open. We definitely capitalized on your field day activities, and it was fantastic. And we used Flipgrid, and the kids would create their own field day events and then share them back with us. And those children who were not super camera shy had a blast with Flipgrid and just loved creating their little videos. And it was a great way to see their faces and hear their voices, and meant an awful lot to us. So we also had a virtual gymnastic show, because our fifth graders always do a gymnastic show. And so we had that. We did Project ACEs, and we did that through YouTube, and that was a school-wide event. So those special things that we did, I think, really helped us with the connections with our students. We have a fourth grade sportsmanship award that we do every year, and we still did that. We did it virtually, and it was, you know, so those kinds of things were really, really fantastic. So I would say the biggest challenges were getting kids on board, trying to figure out how we were going to do our live pieces, which we did not go live until the very end of being at home. So what we did originally was we would do like K1, 2, we'll have a big Google Meet, 3, 4, 5, we'll have a big Google Meet. And then we just did kind of things like, share with us what fun activities you've been doing, or we would do a scavenger hunt or something like that. But that became a little too much. So moving forward, we will definitely break it down into classes if we go virtual, instead of doing groups like that on a weekly basis. And yeah, that's it on that question.
There was one question in the chat. If you use one Google Classroom for each grade level or just one Google Classroom for every level?
Right. So in the spring, what we did was we had 3 Google Classrooms, K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but we won't do that again. That was too much. Even with that few that had registered, we will have to go to each class has its own Google Classroom. I think although it seems crazy to have that many, we'll be watching 24 Google Classrooms. I think it's the only way to really do it effectively.
Betty and Garrett, can you just tell us, do you know your plan for going back this fall? Do you know already? And can you share what it is?
So our plan at my school is we are scheduled to go back on September 8th. That would be our normal starting date, in person. We are very fortunate. The campus is very large with a lot of outdoor space. So we are putting up some tents for teachers to use outdoor space as well. We will have a different type of schedule. We're typically on a 7-day schedule rotation for all 3 divisions. And that did not work great in the spring when we went to virtual. It made it really complicated to manage. We have a couple crossover teachers. So middle and upper school will go to a 5-day schedule, which then trickles down to lower school. We'll go to a 5-day schedule. So we'll have an A and B just for this year type of schedule. That way, if we do have to pivot quickly and we're virtual and doing distance learning, it won't be so complicated for families and students. They'll know every Monday a week, these are the classes we're having. So that's how we're planning on doing it. To make the lower school, or elementary school, we're going to be doing each grade level will only receive 2 departmentals for 4 to 5 weeks. So I'll go in, I'll teach 1st and 2nd grade for the first 5 weeks of school every single day. And then I'll rotate off to another 2 grade levels. That's how they think they can keep their pods a little bit safer. That's how our school has chosen to do it. I don't know if we pivot virtually, if they'll increase time and allow time. I did do, I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to wrap my mind around is that I can't get through all the content I would normally get through. Everything I'm reading about is, give yourself permission. It's about 1/3 of what you probably could get through in a normal school year if you were there. I've taken 2 online, how to be a more effective online educator, and both courses say you've got to, I just took the part of the class yesterday, and it's, I might say it wrong, Marie Kondo your curriculum. Like, you have to find what's going to bring joy to the kids, and you get rid of all that other stuff that we might have been able to do. So trying to give myself permission to scale back a little bit. I'm hoping that will make it more rich, because I really truly believe at some point we will be virtual, and then that changes everything. And the beginning part's all going to be about relationships.
Okay. How about Miguel? How about you? What model are you doing in New York?
So our elementary kids are full in. So pre-K through 5 will be fully in person, and our middle school and our high schools will be going hybrid. We're not sure yet how the specials will be worked. We don't know if we'll follow our normal special schedule, which is we see our kids twice a week, the whole school, feeling that we might go to some type of a rotation. So there's not as much exposure to as many children. But at this point, that's the plan. And we're ready for that plan to change at any given moment, just based on what's going on in the world. So.
Thank you. Thank you. So our second question to our panelists is, what are one or two strategies that you developed as a result of this past spring's experience? Betty, how about you?
I think my biggest strategy is that I'm going to make mistakes and let the kids see it. I mean, when I was teaching in brick and mortar face-to-face at the elementary level, I think students don't see adults fail enough. So I fail daily in front of them, and I want them to be my helpers. How are we going to solve that problem? Boy, Miss Fish, that's not going to work. So to get that to happen. So I think I've been trying to model that a little bit more in my filming of things. I'm fortunate the school over the summer made a commitment to go all Seesaw for pre-K through 4. And I've been doing Seesaw for digital PE portfolios probably since Seesaw came out, but I'm the only teacher that's doing it. I've kind of been on an island. So I'm excited that I'll be able to do a little more partnering with classroom teachers and other departmentals. I found that to be really effective for the students. I was trying to have kindergarten students learn how to tie their shoes since they had a lot of time at home. So I partnered with the librarian who read a book about sneakers and tying shoes. I made a video, and then I had the art teacher have the art lesson be to draw their sneakers. And so it was a great cross-curricular. I think anything that we can do to tie in with either the homeroom teacher or other departmentals is to our benefit. So those were some of my strategies. Don't be afraid to fail. Keep it kind of short, and tap your resources with the other people in your school.
How about you?
I'm going to just sort of piggyback off of Betty Ann. That's the nice part about going second. The communication within the staff, not just within the PE world, but within the whole entire building is really massive. So when we were struggling to get kids to sign on to our Google Classroom, I never had any problem just reaching out to classroom teachers. Hey, can you post it in your stream, please? A little reminder, put the code in, give them a gentle nudge. And, the relationship building that happens leading up to it made that really helpful. So, if you have that kind of a relationship with the classroom teachers and your administrators and all, great. If you don't, then I would say really work on that, because they're gonna help you out tremendously. And then again, the collaborating, we had I can't tell you how many different, well, you do too, I'm sure, about 1 million different little groups in my phone that were constantly. So we've got my special area friends in one group text, and so that type of collaboration also is really important, and finding out, hey, library, what did you do? How did you get kids to join in? I see that you've got more numbers than I do, and can I sit in on your Google Classroom and see how you run it? And that type of the relationships with the people in your building was tremendously helpful. I don't think we could have done it without that.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
There were just a few questions on what Seesaw is and what the advantages of using Seesaw are.
Okay, I'll take that one. So Seesaw is a learning management system. It can be used at any grade level, but I find that the younger students pick it up very easily. It's personally, it's easier to use than Google Classroom. So when I started using Seesaw in the gym with my first grade students, I would pose a question or an assessment, and I might say, write something. And, as I'm walking around at the end when we're doing our assessment. This was years ago. They would say, hey, can we make a video? I'm like, well, sure, go ahead. I didn't know we could, you know, at the time, it was all new. And then others were like, can I draw you a picture? And I got these awesome pictures of when we did the Winter Olympics of kids in bobsleds with 2 kids with their helmets on and this beautifully designed bobsled. And that was their favorite Winter Olympic activity. So to me, I think Seesaw is intuitive for students. They can use the thing I like is it gives them choice. They can use their voice. They can take a photo. They can take a video. They can draw. They can write. They can import things. If they're already using Google products, you can import from Google Drive. You can upload things. I just found it was really seamless for my students, and I didn't have to do a lot of teaching on it to get responses. So that's why I've always liked Seesaw and used it. And as the school researched so in the spring, we had 2 kindergarten girls sections using Seesaw. We had some 3rd and 4th grade teachers using Google Classroom. We had teachers using nothing at all, just sending things home. So having one platform will be to our advantage. And then I'll just, they're still determining if we'll be a sub teacher in there for each grade level. So then when they open their morning day, the homeroom teacher will have everything listed and they would just click on to PE and all the stuff would be in one place. They want to get everything housed in one place so it's easier for families and students to navigate. So hopefully that if there's more questions about Seesaw, feel free to put them in the chat over there and we can circle back to it.
Right. Okay. All right. I see some great questions coming in, and there'll be time after we finish for the second hour and our panelists will address as best they can, will address those questions. They'll probably address them as we go along. So my next question to our panelists is, if you were to return to on-ground teaching, in-person teaching this fall, what strategies would you use with regards to the following? So the first one is social distancing and safety measures. What might you do?
So I'm hoping that people on the call are not having 4 sections of kindergarten sent to them for a class. I hope that when I read these numbers that people have with the younger students in the past, what the numbers were, I'm hoping that schools have come up with a plan so that the numbers aren't quite so high. So when I meet my students and I'll have all of 1st grade every day for the first, like I said, 4 weeks, that is as of August 10th. That could change while I'm on this call, who knows? But my plan is to do a lot of, I'm not going to start with equipment. I'm hoping to be outside as much as I can. I'm hoping to have some grids painted on my field space so that there's a visual for students. And we're going to spend a lot of time just doing things in our grid and going over those safety measures and praising the kids for wearing the mask and doing the right thing and saying, you know, you really value this community. I can tell you're keeping your mask on, you're staying at a distance. I think the more we can come from that positive slant that you're helping all of us out as opposed to stop touching, get away, especially with the younger ones, I think it really helps. So, and I know for most of my students, they're going to be seeing their friends for the first time. So again, I'm not going to get, you know, I'm paring back what I'm going to get through, but that first week I have planned on just doing social, emotional things, building relationships, letting them chat with each other out on the field in the space, and then doing some locomotor and balance, just some simple things that they can do by themselves that they can transition at home if we need to pivot after a week or 2. But that's going to kind of be where I am, just the positive reminders of how we're going to keep our community safe and why we need to keep each other safe. Who knows?
So we are, you know, at this point, as I said, planning on going back face to face. And again, like I said, I'm not really sure how PE is going to be run along with the other special areas, but I'm pretty sure we will not have our gym space. I'm sure that's pretty sure that it's going to be used for overflow classrooms because they want to reduce the sizes for the social distancing. So we do have an outdoor area. I'm on a subcommittee to help figure out how the outdoor area will be used. There'll be some sections that the children will go outside for recess, which is fantastic. Very happy to hear that. And they'll be allowed to use the playground equipment, which is really good news because I know a lot of school districts are not allowing that to happen. So there'll be the recess children, there'll be PE, there'll be whatever teachers are bringing their kids out for either mask breaks or to do some kind of outdoor education. So really fortunate to be on the committee that is helping to design the outdoor area, because now PE will be represented in a way that makes sense. So I definitely would like to have the blacktop space to be able to use, and then we can paint lines or grids or whatever it is, so that we can have that 12 feet distance. I'm going to guess that we will get the same size class that we've had in the past. So if, say, Mrs. Rex's class has only 15, I will get 15 when they come to PE. Again, I don't really know if that's how it's going to work, but I'm pretty sure they won't give us massive numbers of kids. We're going to have to figure out how to project our voices and maybe some kind of mic system, which I'm also trying to see if we put. When you hear that has to come out of your PE budget, it's like, can I yell really loud so that I can get equipment once we actually start using it? Like Betty Ann, we're going to start out without equipment and sort of take it from there, and getting them used to the protocols and the procedures and the social distancing, and try to make it as game-like as we can. And also taking the time to push into their classrooms, the first or second class, so that we can get them into our PE Google Classroom right there while we have them live, so that when we flip, they're already there. So those are the things: the SEL, the safety, getting used to the procedures and the protocols, no equipment, and getting them used to our platforms. That's how we're going to start out the year. But SEL being the biggest one. We want those relationships, and we want to build them right away. And that's all.
Awesome. So what about specifically sanitizing and cleaning equipment? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'll go off the model that our school has a summer camp at school, and they went back, and the camp started up, I would say, the beginning of July. And their protocol right now, and because it's a camp at the school, so it's a school protocol as well, is whenever they leave a space, they sanitize their hands. Whenever they enter a space, they sanitize their hands. Limited equipment. We have had a discussion with the school doctor and about equipment. It was a robust discussion, especially at the elementary level, like, young kids put things in their mouth and whatever. Thought process being that with the masks on, that may diminish some, but that we are not going to have shared equipment. We are not going to, in PE, share equipment, especially to start out, until some of the guidelines maybe change. So I'm hoping that we're not sanitizing. Well, we won't have to sanitize equipment. It'll just be hands as we leave a classroom, enter a classroom, is the protocol that we have in place for right now. We'll see how that goes. I'm in Pennsylvania, so not only, and also in Philadelphia, so we're kind of under two guidelines there. So it may be a little different than other people that are in the state of Pennsylvania, but right now we will not be using equipment. So that sanitation of equipment is not an issue. It's just the hands of coming and going at times.
All right.
So.
How about you, Megara?
Well, I know with the playground equipment, it's the same kind of thing. The kids, they have to wash their hands or sanitize their hands before they go out to use it. And then when they come back in, I don't believe, but I could be wrong, that it's cleaned in between groups. But at the end of the day, it's cleaned by the custodial staff. We won't be sharing equipment either during PE or anything else. We're hoping that we can get individual kits for the kids, so they all have their own little PE bag with the essential equipment that we'll be using. it's, you know, but again, in the beginning, we're not using equipment anyway, so it won't really come into play. But the individual kit bag is something that we're pushing pretty hard for. It makes the most sense. And then if we do have to close down and go virtual, that kit can go home with them. So it's not going to always be sock balls that they're using in the house. So
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
I agree with that. We're working on individual kits as well. So they would have access at school and at home.
Well, that's a great idea. Can you share maybe what content you might be either adding or eliminating in the fall?
I'm really going to try to spend some probably increased time on doing some, and I don't have it all formalized or thought out because it's still, matter of fact, I emailed to find out about schedule last night. Are we still on that model of 4 to 5 weeks that I'm having all of first grade? So I've not planned that way before. So I'm still trying to wrap my brain around all that. But I'm thinking, you know, that first week, it'd be 4 days. We would do some, you know, obviously safety procedures going to eat up quite a chunk of time, and transitioning from the classroom out to the field and getting them back. It's not right next to it. So there's a little bit of travel distance as well that factors in time. So CEL and some balanced locomotor just to get started. And also, you know, CEL meaning relationships and just the chatting. And then probably if I'm seeing everybody, I can go back to something I've done in the past, which was a Fitness Friday, where they always know it's a Friday fitness. That way I can minimize equipment on that Friday and then do 4 days of something else in the front end. So anyway, those are kind of the things you know, I've done field hockey, we've done soccer. Maybe we could do some soccer things as we get a little further in. I think a lot depends on those first 2 weeks of school to really find out, are guidelines changing, are guidelines getting tighter, getting looser, how's it going? Everybody's school is going to be different. So maybe at my school, we can incorporate some equipment, but at Miguel school, they're like, no way, we can't use anything. So I think I hate to say that, you know, we're building what are we, flying the plane and building at the same time? Is that what you called it? So I think it's going to be kind of that. I have some thoughts in my ideas kind of roughed out on paper, but I really, until that first week of face-to-face, I think whatever I have planned is going to change over that first weekend, and it's going to transition to something else. So I'm hopeful. I think the biggest thing I want to do if we're face-to-face is just to inspire joy and movement, however that looks for kids, you know, and encourage that, because I want the joy in learning to come back. I don't want them to be, I have to go on a Google Meet again. We have to watch Miss Fish for 20 minutes on a video, and I have to follow her doing some crazy dance that we would do anyway, but now I'm watching her and it's not live. So I just want to try to find ways to bring joy to kids. So I know it's not a really great answer because I really don't have it formed out yet.
Okay, that's good. That's good. How about you, Meg? Any changes to content or not?
So right now we have a group of elementary PE teachers that are working on really examining our curriculum and our timeline that we've done traditionally in the past, and making all of the kinds of modifications that we just need to make. So, you know, similar to Betty Ann, you know, just trying to build the relationships, the joy. I agree with that 100%. They have to be joyful. These kids have experienced trauma. They're still experiencing trauma. So any way we can help them just have a little moment of fun, we're going to try to work on. A lot of the things that we've done in the past, and it's interesting talking to my peers, and they say, well, you know, so we can start out, they could go run some laps as a warm up. It's like, it's going to be really hard for them to run laps when you've got the slipstream and the 15 feet and all of the, and they're like, oh, so, you know, a lot of that type of stuff, it's a real having to change the way we've been thinking all these years. I think we're going to try to look at kind of like a spiraling type curriculum. I don't know if that's the correct word, but instead of doing our 4-week or 3 or 4 week units, we'll just spiral on up and do maybe 2 or 3 lessons of one particular thing and then on to something else and then come back and do it again. And again, a really different way for us as a district to teach, but I think it's going to help. When we were trying to do the, like, how many lessons can you have a kid with a sock ball with tossing in a row before they're done and they want to do something else? So we'll definitely get more dance in, more locomotor for the littles, which will, I think, be great. Movement concepts over, under, around, through. We're looking to collaborate with our ENL department to, you know, help build their vocabulary through movement. So lots of opportunities to be really creative and get the content across while keeping everybody safe. So I know that was sort of like a big word salad of a lot of different things, but that's, you know, kind of where we're at this point.
Okay, how about, well, the last part of that question is about assessment. What are your plans for assessment, and what are you being called on to assess at this point?
This is where I think I'm the most excited, is assessment, which I didn't do a great job of in the spring. We were just trying to, I think everybody was in the same mode. We were just trying to survive and provide some kind of movement for students. But what I'm excited about is that now that we're using Seesaw, I can do more assessment in a quicker amount of time. So I might be able to put okay, let's just say we're discussing, all right, I'll take your word concepts there, Miguel. So we're going over something. I can put 2 pictures up, one of Miss Fish going over something, one of Miss Fish going under something, and they have to just click which is the right one. It would be really quick and easy. I learned, some of you may be familiar with Edpuzzle, where you can make a video and you can stop it partway through the video, ask a question, and the students answer it, and they right away they know, was it correct or wrong? And then they can go back and rewatch something. So I'm excited to be able to have more opportunities to assess in a variety of ways, instead of just having a student maybe submit a video of themselves skipping. So there's a little more depth of knowledge there, understanding of the concepts, that I think is exciting and is an opportunity we haven't had in the past, because we've done so much by, especially with our younger students, just actually watching them. So I think there's some exciting possibilities out there. I would say the biggest thing is working with your tech team and knowing what tools are out there and what tools the school is using so that you can make your assessments. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's been quite a few years since I was in college, and I remember, you know, your best friends are the maintenance people, the cafeteria staff, and your front office staff. Well, I would include your tech team now. They can be really supportive. And if your first grade teacher is already using Edpuzzle or whatever they're using for assessment, just ask them for the help. Don't spend 3 hours trying to figure it out, not having it work, and then saying, oh, forget it, took too long, I'm not going to do it. Because then your students lose out on it. So find those key, we all know those key players in our school, which teachers are the most tech savvy and using it with their students. So, you know, tap them for your resource, tap your tech department would be my big things. But I'm super excited to be able to do more assessment, especially with the Seesaw.
Yeah.
I keep thinking virtual, but we're going back face to face. So I have to, this is going to be my year, back and forth and back and forth. So either way, I would like to, you know, get my students familiar with whatever technology we'll be using for assessing. And also I like to give them some choices. So knowing that some kids do not want to do a video of themselves, I would give them a choice. You can either share something on Flipgrid, or you can use this Google form. And that's sort of how we did it last year with the small numbers that we had, and it worked out well. We had our our real hams that love to make their little videos. They considered themselves to be like rising YouTube or TikTok stars. And then we had the other children who were a little camera shy, and they filled out the Google form. So being able to give them choices on how we assess them, I think, is going to be really important moving forward. I love the idea of the Ed puzzle. I sort of fooled with that a little bit in the past, but I'll have to dive back into it and see if I can figure it out there. Now, Betty Ann, I have a question about that. With the Ed puzzle, is it set up so that the kids cannot skip ahead? So it has to go in the sequence. All right, so that's good. So you don't have to worry about, the kid that just sort of skips through everything else and goes to the end. So those are some of the different things that we'll do. But I think giving them the choice of how they're assessed is going to be important. And, sorry, I know I'm leaving my sentences with like, and so, but I can't do a redo. So there you have it.
Okay.
It's real.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think before we go on to our last question, as a retired PE person, generally, the general public doesn't think we assess, does not know that we assess, doesn't even think that PE assesses. And I think this time, because of this COVID-19, I think it's an opportunity for us to step up and show them that we do assess, that learning is going on in PE. So that's my 2 cents. The last
Well,
question.
and I think, I was just going to go back to that assessment. I think it is an opportunity for us, whether we're face-to-face or we are distance learning, but everybody's amped up, every school is amped up their technology and device use and learning platform. So I think it becomes not a paper and pencil and only the teacher and the student see it, but if it's in that learning platform, families are going to be able to see it. And that goes to your point that a broader public is going to see that we do assessments and that there is value to it. And so, yeah.
No, that's great. You're right. So our last question, you guys, you have covered some of this a little bit. So we'll just close. This is our final question. So there may be some repeats, but that's okay. Can you share a few ideas for content and activities that you have planned for the fall due to the COVID-19 situation? Like I said, you may be repeating, but I think it's good.
I'm going to try to figure out, I don't have it formalized or figured out at this point, but how do I do those team challenges, cooperation, collaboration, problem solving when we're all in a 6-foot grid or we're staring at a screen or doing something. So that's what I'm kind of working on right now is how do I develop some of those things when we have physical distance, where we have really big physical distance in that we're not on campus. So trying to figure out how I can do, some of those building of the animal puzzles that they're studying in kindergarten, and each team has to collect pieces and build a puzzle and work together and develop those leadership skills and listening skills and all of that. I don't have that formalized at this point, but those are some of that's a big one for me is how am I going to have that come across in either setting that we're in. It might be a little bit easier to be in grids on a grass setting and students are contributing to a story or sharing something about themselves so that when I say, hey, I love to ride my bike over the summer, my kids like, wow, I do too. Maybe our families could do something like that. Yes, you can use the Flipgrid to develop some of those things and find out information from students. Also, within Seesaw, if we were to start not on campus, having them answer some of those questions with their family about what do you want me to know as the teacher? Because now I'm not right there in front of you. So what do you want me to know about your summer or about you as a learner? Some of your favorite things. I hear so much about don't ask how are you doing. It changed your way of thinking to what do you need from me? Now that we're back on campus, what do you need from me? Not how do you feel today? Because I'm kind of trying to follow the chat thread, which is kind of tricky. I'm not good at double tasking there. But that SEL trauma-informed classroom is such a big piece. So changing our language where it doesn't seem like a big flip, but it is a big flip, saying that, like, what do you need from me? I really care about you. What can I do to, as opposed to, how are you today? Just like when they get in the car at the end of the school day. What you do at school? Nothing. Well, how do you feel today? Great. So if you could reframe your train of thought and how you ask questions, I think will be a big one to build those relationships, because kids have been away for so long. They haven't seen anybody but maybe a family, depending on how tight the families have been. You know, some have gone into little pods in the neighborhood or cousins and things, but some have really social distanced and have really held it hard and fast. So how do we, you know, the big one for me is that relationship, collaboration, and I don't have a firm answer on that yet. So.
Got it. Yeah. How about you, Miguel?
So in some ways, I think that it's almost easier to do it virtually, because I'm used to just come on, everybody huddle up, you know, come on in, and we're close together and we can have that real physical closeness. And now it's, you know, here they are spread out, and I'm on a mic, and we all have masks on, and it's going to be challenging. So that's one of the things that we're looking at as a district, is how can we start off the year and establish that kind of closeness and that kind of bond, you know, between the children and ourselves, and within all of the children. I don't have an answer. We're just sort of looking at all of our resources. We're looking at what Open has put out. I just started, I'm trying to catch up on all of the stuff that's out there right now. So I was just watching Kate Cox's, she did, if you haven't seen it yet, you need to watch it, because she did a really great, as far as I've gone so far with watching it. If anybody knows what it is I'm trying to say, you could put it in the chat. But so it was Kate Cox, and she did it pretty recently, and it was set up like this. But anyway, she had some great ideas on how to start establishing the relationships virtually. Yeah, so it's going to be a big work in progress, and it's tricky, but I think if we just keep talking with each other and using our resources, we'll come up with some great ways of getting started. And I know that was like vague, but
no, that's good. That's good. Thank you so much. So that's our first hour. So before we go to our second hour, I think it's time for everybody to stand up. We need a little break here. Stand up. So come on, yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Let's stand up. Turn around. Come on, turn around. Clockwise first. Counterclockwise the other way. Let's go. Come on. Stand up, sit down. Yeah, there we go. Oh, all right. So for the second hour, yes, Betty.
So I was just I wanted to hit on a couple of things before we go into those questions,
Sure.
because there's been so much about Facebook groups, Twitter groups, there's the Bitmoji groups, there's elementary PE, there's all kinds of information. And just remember, you know your students best. I can put out a great lesson and it may not work for you. So feel free to tweak things, take things. And I think for a lot of people, there's that fear of missing out. And oh my gosh, I've got to make a Bitmoji classroom. I've got to do this in Seesaw. I've got to make these videos, and they have to have an intro and an end and a middle part. And I've got to make an assessment thing. That if you try to do all of it, you're going to be overwhelmed and you're going to say, forget it. I can't do it. So keep it simple. Start with something that'll work. Maybe not with every grade level that you're teaching, however your classrooms are, you know, your schedule is set up. If you're diving into the tech piece, make sure it's with a homeroom teacher, a classroom teacher that's already tech savvy, so that they can help you out and you can share the resources there. And really remember, and Miguel said it as well, and it's been in the chat, but every family's different. So maybe, you know, there's dealing with sick sick family members at home. They're worried because parents don't have a job, not sure where food's coming from. That every kid is individual, and even more so now if we're in a distance learning situation, that every situation is very different. So take that into account. So just to kind of like, those are my bullet things, like just remember that and make a mistake, move on, don't stress over it, don't, you know, make 25 takes of the same 5-minute video. You'll drive yourself crazy.
All right, Joe, and we have 84 questions.
Oh, all right.
Yes, we do have a lot of questions.
Joe, can you put those in certain categories so we can get through them all?
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to do that. The first one that I'm going to bring up is, how do you plan to keep a 12-foot distance work in your school, whether that's inside or outside? And yeah, we're just going to cut that question there. How do you plan to keep a 12-foot distance between students in your school?
Okay, so I'll grab that one. And I think Betty Ann had already said about having grids painted. I think that's super important to have the different grids painted, not just set. There's no way I'm going out and I'm setting up cones, you know, every single day. It's just not going to happen. Plus, then they move. And so staking out an area specifically for PE that everybody knows, you know, in the school community, this is PE. We cannot be, you know, coming out there and using that. And having that great relationship with your custodial staff so that they don't mind when they have to put down lines again because it rained or they mowed the lawn, or, you know, repainting and touching up the blacktop, and having the PTA involved as well. So I think that's what we're going to have to do. And then again, try to make it a little bit game like with the kids, especially with the babies, which I don't even want to think about right now. Those little kindergartners, holy cow, that's going to be something else. They will have their grid, and whew, okay, we'll make it work because we'll have to, right? But if we keep it game-like and fun and light as best as possible, I think that will help. Instead of, we don't want them to be scared because they might get too close to somebody else. That's not going to do anybody any good at all. So.
There was a point brought up about PE kits and what you plan to put into each individual PE kit.
Okay, this is open for discussion and we're still trying to figure it out, but absolutely each kit would have a jump rope, some type of a ball that will bounce, you know, whether it's the large ones are not so great because then they have to inflate them and they're harder to get back and forth. So we were thinking of a tennis ball or a handball, so a racquetball. Chalk is great, but you know, there's just so much you can do with chalk, but it just disappears very, very quickly. And scarves are another great thing to have in a kit. And this is open for if anybody has any other ideas of what you think are like the basic essentials. That's what we came up with: jump rope, bouncing ball, and scarves, and possibly chalk.
I'm going to add in there some type of bean bag if possible for my group. And some of those, oh boy, I'm not going to call the cones right, but they're only maybe this tall and they're narrow. So it's a target base, something that you could kick the small ball to, you could underhand toss a beanbag and knock it over, and maybe a poly spot so that no matter where I am, I have a green poly spot. When it goes in that grid, that is my home base with my other equipment so that I can get back there. So those are the things I'm trying to keep it to maybe 5 items.
There was one question. Our district is using a hybrid model with no equipment to be used at all. Where are some resources that websites that I could go to get some ideas for K through 5? I'll be outside, weather permitting, or going room to room. I went to Shape and Open Phys Ed, but I don't see lessons specified to this yet. Thanks. I know some people have already put in some resources in the chat, but I think we're just wondering if you have any more ideas for resources.
I haven't had a chance to really look at the chat too much, but Betty and Mark, and I know I'm going to say their last name wrong, Fowler?
Fulmer.
Okay, so Fulmer. Okay, they have, and if somebody knows what their website is, they've got a lot of great information there. So that would definitely be another place to look.
I want to say it's CBH, and I don't have all my tabs up, so it's like Chromebooks Health PE, and I don't know if it's .com. Maybe somebody that's on here knows there it is. Thank you, Betsy. That's it.
Betsy.
I didn't have it right. Okay. It's .org.
Yep.
But there's a lot of great info there. I know in the chat earlier there was something about priority outcomes, and there was also something about SEL. And I just wanted to say that Open they did do a priority outcome, and they tried to tailor, somebody had asked, how do you tailor down the outcomes? So Open does have priority outcomes, and they are already tailored down per grade level. And they also have a great course on social emotional learning that I had our entire PE staff take, and then I sent it to all my division heads and my head of school, saying that all PE teachers would have completed this course. And I've never had an administrator get back to me so fast via email and said, give me the link. I want to know what they're all going to learn. And I think we really have to be the biggest advocates and proponents that we teach SEL. It's on every administrator's mind. So the more we can let them know we've taken a course, and there are resources to Open also, not just for the course, but for other activities and information. So I think it's a good way for us to stay connected with admin, and admin to know exactly how important we are in the day-to-day running of a school. I'll just put it out there.
I'm just going to jump on one thing that Betty Ann had said, and that is using the word advocate and being an advocate. And it's so much more important now than I think than it ever was before. And to be, involved in whatever committees your district has, your school has, so that you have a voice for your students and for the profession. So yeah, that doesn't really have much to do with the nuts and bolts of it, but it's such an important piece. And I don't even know what would be happening right now in our district if we didn't have PE people on these different committees. So.
There was a question on whether you're able to use Google Meet with more than one Google Classroom at a time.
That may be out of my scope.
Yeah.
If you were to give, if you set up a Google Meet and you had a link, and both, I don't know if this will work or it won't work. I haven't been in the situation, but if you had a link to a Google Meet and you shared it with students, they should all be able to join that. But I haven't had to test it, so maybe there's somebody out there that does. But if you have that link and share it with 2 classrooms, they should both be able to join, in at least in Betty Ann's mind.
No, I think you're right. As long as the children have the specific link, I think you can do it, but I wouldn't swear to it. But that's a great question for your tech person in your building.
That's good.
There was a question about outside play and having PE outside without mask on. It's kind of with the 12 feet distancing and how you plan to keep that going, but do you think that keeping that 12-foot distance on an inside scale as well you would also be able to do it inside without masks as long as you were keeping that 12-foot distance? Or do you think that wouldn't be okay with what you're
yeah, we're required. It's masks all day, inside, outside, except for mask breaks and eating. So, that's what our district is doing.
I'm the same way. Outside, we have to still have a mask on.
Another one, Joe?
I'm trying to find if there's any more that haven't already been answered.
I'll just share while he's looking, I'll just share about, how about inside the gym as far as grids go? Now you don't want to do, if you don't want to do cones, Meg, I get it. I'm a retired elementary PE teacher, and this one was a trick that I learned so many years ago. And there's a family company who makes this now. But what I used to do was make a grid inside. It would be okay for custodians, not using tape and that kind of stuff. I would use watercolor paint, put it in a shoe applicator with a foam applicator, and draw my grids that way. And it would come off easily with water. And I could change the lines when I wanted to, and the custodians didn't go crazy that I was staining their hardwood floors. That's just something to share. But there is a company now, I'm not plugging them, but there is a company that makes that product now. I wish I did it a long time ago myself, but I didn't. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, we usually
go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Meg.
I was just gonna say, we usually use the floor tape, and our custodial staff is okay with that.
You're okay.
Yeah, because we couldn't use what you're talking about, because the wipes that are used to clean it off didn't pass our safety code or so. But I wish we could come up with a way that we could use that much easier than putting down the floor tape.
Yeah.
I just moved into a brand new teaching space last year, and I did have grids put on, and I'm headed in tomorrow to find out if between grids I have 6 feet. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm not feeling as hopeful, but maybe I can use every other grid. So I'm glad I had the grids painted on. They gave me a little pushback. Do you need all these lines in here? And now I'm like, yeah, this is why we need them. So, but I don't know how many grids I have.
There was a question on teaching outside when it's going to be definitely a lot warmer out, especially during the beginning of the year. How do you plan to respond to it being a bit warmer outside with the kids having the mask on?
I'll take it first. We have a zero tolerance policy. We are in masks. If there is an issue with masks, then administration gets involved. I will, obviously, when it's warmer out, not only are kids in masks, we're in the masks. I've been testing out masks as I take an hour bike ride to see what I can sustain for an hour sweaty like that. Not that that's going to happen in the PE class, but definitely it will be a challenge. And I think we just have to alter what we're teaching on those really hot days. I think for most of us on the East Coast, we're in a nice position because there are many schools that have already gone back, and we can tap them for resources. So they can say, when it is hot and humid here in Florida or Georgia, you got to scrap that kind of unit and do this kind of activity outside. So I'm hoping that in the next 3 weeks, we will see more things coming through the Twitter feed on what has worked well for teachers that are already back in the situation.
I don't really have anything to add to it. I just try to keep them as cool as possible, recommend that they wear baseball caps. If they have their water bottles with them, that's one way that they can, do a quick little sip of water, but the masks will still have to stay on. And on those days, if it's too hot, we might just have to push it to the classroom.
And I think we have to remind families of sunscreen, because for some schools, students will be out much more than they have been in the past. So just taking that safety health caution as well.
Awesome.
With the grids that you're planning to create, the 6-foot grids, are you creating a no man's land where the teacher is able to walk around the classroom, or are you not?
I am hopeful that I can still walk around. There's been a lot of discussion as they set up classroom space where there's a teaching location at the front end of the classroom. And I know this is for classroom, but they have this whole layout for where the desks are that keep the desks 6 feet apart. Obviously, if the teacher walks down the middle, there's a lot of thought with this, and please don't hold me to this, I don't know the guideline, but 15 minutes of close contact without face masks, so that if the teacher is walking down between desks and everybody is masked, then they're not as high risk. Don't follow those guidelines, but that's just some of the talk and things that my school has been trying to navigate. I am hopeful I can still walk around and I don't have to be on an island somewhere, but if that changes in the way that my school sets it up, then yes, there will be a separate grid for me as well.
I think it'll be a little bit easier to have that established when we're teaching outside, because we'll have more space. And since I'm on that committee, thank you. I had not heard that no man's land. Now I'll make sure that we put that in when we stake out our territory.
There was a question on if you could give a quick example or kind of like template of what a live stream 30 to 45-minute virtual class would look like. So how you're breaking it up, how you're going to do your warm up, cool down, everything.
I'll try to tackle this in what I think we're moving to this year, is that when we have live classes, the expectation would not be that I am dancing around or doing an activity for a full 30 minutes. I'm hopeful that I'll do an intro warm up. I'll do a lesson teaching of a skill or some type of skill, something, and allowing students to then have some time to practice and then bring them all back together at the end, so that they would have I would still be there, I'm present, they can ask a question, they can show me something, but if it is a live class and not one that I've taped, that part of it, the students would be doing the activity themselves, if we are, distance learning, but that I'm always on the call, on the live stream, if they have a question or they want to show something, and then we all come back together and do a closing just like we would in our normal teaching space face-to-face. I've not tried it. I have no idea if it'll work, especially with the younger students, but that's kind of what's been talked about for departmentals at my school.
Yeah, I would say similar. I really, it kills me to have the kids on the screen as much as they're going to be on screen, this upcoming year when they're virtual. So I would want to try to structure it so it was very little time where they're actually physically on the screen with me and they're off doing, and they check in periodically throughout. But I would definitely want to have some type of a sharing thing, a few moments for, community building at the beginning, and then maybe a little bit of mindfulness at the very end, and then an activity. I haven't really thought it through too clearly, but definitely I would structure virtual lessons so that they have spent the least amount of time doing this as possible.
And I did do some, I'm going to call it enrichment classes in the spring that were after the traditional school day. And it was, we did dance and yoga with Miss Fish. So when we first came on, it was really apparent that kids just wanted to chat with each other. They really didn't care about me, I'll be honest. They just were like, hey, there's Amy over there. I haven't talked to her for a while. Hey, there's, Carrie over there. We haven't chatted. And they just wanted to chat back and forth, which I allowed. Then we did an activity, took a little break. We did the second activity, and then I brought them all back together at the end, and that's what they wanted. They wanted to, at the end, it worked really well. They just were, I would ask them a question from maybe the yoga we did, and they would say, yeah, I loved when we were spaceships and we went to outer space. And then they started sharing and having that dialogue, which I think is so important for them.
Someone asked a question. I am all virtual and 40-minute lessons per class a week. What kind of topics do you suggest for only virtual teaching so that the students don't feel like they're stuck in their living rooms with their computer?
I'm just rereading this question over here so I can process it. Is that, and I don't know who asked that, is it just one lesson a week or is it every day for 40 minutes? And what grade level, if they could give a little more detail. Unless Miguel, you want to jump in there with stuff. Oh, per class a week, I see that now.
Wait, so I'm just, does that mean that you are actually, as the teacher, teaching virtually live, like 6 classes a day or something like that? Is that what, I
guess you're virtual.
Because that, to me, would be a nightmare. I can't imagine having to do that.
Have all this equipment you have, lady. So why do you think schools have equipment?
Okay, I'm having trouble hearing that question.
Yeah, Robin, can you just speak up a little bit or get your mic better? Okay. I don't know. There you go. Robin, is that you? Well, okay. Listen, Joe, while we're waiting for that, I'd like to have Betty Ann and Miguel talk a little bit about SEL a little bit more. What's your thoughts and feelings about that? About how we are going to either teach directly to it or integrate it into our lessons? Because it's important.
So yeah, so that's another subcommittee that I'm on. And we're trying to, come up with some basic activities that everybody can use within the building to recognize if a student is struggling more so than they would be otherwise, and try to bring in something with common language so that everybody is more or less on the same page. So we've used the zones of regulation in our school in the past. And if you're not familiar with it, so it's called the zones of regulation. And it's sort of a way that kids can identify what they're feeling, what emotions they're feeling, and also develop strategies of how to then help themselves get into a better place. So for example, if I was in the yellow zone, that might mean that I'm a little bit anxious. I've got anxieties. And so first I need to be able to recognize what zone I'm in, and then I can start working on different strategies. So most of our kids are familiar with it. Our incoming kindergartners are not. So we might continue with that as a way to help support our students. And there's lots of different games and activities that can be done to help teach the zones. And it's a great way to check in and check out. The kids just sort of indicate what zone they're in. And it's a nice heads up to the teachers as well. If you notice that a student is consistently in the blue zone, meaning they're feeling sad, then you might want to follow up with some kind of support through guidance or school psychologist or something like that. So look into the zones of regulation if you're not familiar with it. It's pretty awesome, and the kids respond to it very well. It's easy for them.
Also, Castle .org has some good social emotional information, and I would definitely try to partner with whatever resource person at your school, whether it's a psychologist, guidance, everybody's got different terms, but in what maybe program they're using, and let them know that you can, if you're not already following that, but let them know that you can help teach that for them. We have some push into classrooms on some of that social emotional learning. So I try to partner up with that resource person so that I'm using the same language. but that then they realize that it's happening, not just, they're not the only one doing that, pushing into a classroom. So there might be some things in place at each of your schools that you can tap into, as well as developing some of your own. But finding those resources, castle.org, Open's got things. So there's a lot of other ones that I think I saw flying by in the chat as well. But find something that you think you can implement and is doable for you and your students.
And then Health Moves Minds as well.
Yes.
You know, so through Shape America. So if you look into that one, that's another great resource.
And although the two of us can't follow this chat very easily, there is great resources that come through every time I peek over. I'm like, somebody else is sharing some more awesome information. So there's that is one thing I found very early on in March. I think phys ed and health teachers are the biggest sharers of information and content. We all want everybody to succeed, and we want the students to succeed. So use those resources. So thanks to everybody in the chat who, while we're trying to frame our thoughts, you're just sending out links. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Betty, I agree. There's so much good stuff on the chat. This is being recorded, so hopefully the chat will be on there also when people go back to view it. Right? Is that correct?
And I think we haven't really talked too much on the technology piece. I'm just seeing Lynn Heffley's name come up on YouTube. She's got some great resources, but there are, if you've never made an iMovie, you're not sure how to make it, don't spend 4 hours researching and figuring it out. Tap into some of these PE people that are sharing how to make certain things. And it's not as daunting as it seems if you don't try to do it on your own. So there's some great information out there on the tech pieces for things. I see people putting up Bitmoji things, virtual classrooms, making an iMovie, making a template for your lesson plans. Like, there's just some great content out there. Daniel Hill had a real smooth, I tried to pattern myself off of his, where he had an intro, he had a warm up, and it only took maybe 12 minutes for the whole lesson, but he had all the things in place. So there's some models to follow.
Joe, is there another question we have?
There's a question on what are the advantages to Bitmoji Classroom for PE?
Well, we haven't created one yet, but we're in the process of it. I think one of the biggest advantages is just that it will be so engaging to the students. So the first time I saw one, I was like, oh, that is awesome. I can't wait to do this. The kids are going to love it. And you can, just a fantastic hyperdoc. So the kids can just, you can set it up any way you want, where they have to go through a progression, or it could be formulated sort of like a choice board. There's a lot of flexibility in it, but I think getting the engagement and the kids excited about doing that, seeing their teachers, little Bitmoji, and I think that's going to be good. I'm excited to start doing it myself. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I didn't use it with my classes this spring. Again, I think we were all in a different situation. We were just trying to get some content out in different ways. I did do a virtual field day, kind of like a Bitmoji classroom, but then I made one for staff health and wellness, that at the last faculty meeting, my head of school shared out with everybody, and there was clips for all kinds of things, and it really inspired teachers to make, like, if I had just sent a resource, here's yoga resources, here's podcast you may want to do, put this link to get to some adult coloring pages to de-stress. But I think having, even for the grown-ups, the adults, the staff, they loved clicking on things, and there was a really positive response to, oh, this is awesome, I can always go back to it. So I can only imagine if it was such a great reception by faculty at the end of a really, really long spring months, which felt like years, that they were so engaged with it, that I can see that being beneficial for students.
Do you have any ideas or suggestions on how to talk to district admins about allowing you to teach outside for schools that are not allowed to teach outside?
I would say go to your state if your state has guidelines for reentry, and go to Shape America for reentry guidelines and see if there's any kind of content in there that would help you advocate for that.
And to just emphasize that if we're really that concerned about the students' social and emotional learning, that they cannot just be in the classroom locked in at their desks all day long. They need the opportunity to be outside. They need it desperately. So, I would try to do it, from the kids' point of view, not necessarily I want to teach PE outside, but these kids need to be outside. And let's figure out how to get them from point A to point B in the safest way possible. If you go in with the solution, hey, I've got it. Here's their fire drill. It might be easier to get some buy-in from admin.
So we have about a half an hour to go. Joe, I was thinking that maybe there's some people out there who would like to talk instead of just chat. Maybe they can raise their hand and then you could call on them, or I can call on them if they'd like to chime in. And, we'd love to hear from them and have some dialogue and discussion instead of just putting it all on our panelists. How do you think that would work?
I think that would be fine. Yeah.
Okay. So is there anyone out there that would like to share, talk, comment? There's got to be someone there. Come on. How about any other questions you'd like to ask?
I have a question.
Yay.
I've heard for the NYC DOE, one of the suggestions they gave me was to do a flipped classroom. And I'm wondering if, since the way it's going in New York City, it's going to be a hybrid. I'm still unsure if I'm going in the school twice a week, three days a week. I don't know as of yet. Would that be something to do? Like, would that be a great thing to do more research on in order to help the students and myself?
I think so. I think flip. Too much talking today. Flipping the classroom would work really well. If you assign the work, front load the work that they're doing when they're home, and then when they come back, then you can actually, work with them a little bit more individually. So yeah, I would look into flipping the classroom. That would be a good model in the hybrid situation.
And especially once you know your LMS, your learning management system. So, if it's Google Classroom, even if it's Seesaw, they could watch something, it would be streamlined because you would just be filtering into whatever your school's already using. The kids will know how to do it, and then they can come ready to go.
Okay, thank you.
I have a raised hand from Jojo and Lainey G.
Hi, so I was the one asking before. I was told that we are going to just run our regular school schedule, but online. So I have 40-minute classes, all my classes, and they're all virtual. So I just am we did a lot from March to June, and we did the yoga, the karate, all the stuff you can do just in the living room in front of the computer. But I'm just I was listening to you guys say that you start an activity and then you have them go do that activity. So are you guys saying you do a soccer skill and then say go outside and do your soccer skill and then come back to your computer? Or I'm trying to find things that the parents aren't going to say like, nope, no soccer balls in our living room. Nope, no basketballs in our living room. So I'm trying to find activities that are not going to make me into like an aerobics instructor, that it would be more skill-based, or even like the teamwork activities. So just, I didn't know if you guys had any ideas about that.
First, let me just ask, are you using like a Google Classroom, or Google Meet, or when you're live, how are you doing that?
Yeah, everything's through Google.
So, you know, there might be the potential, depending on I think if I read in your chat, you're K through 5. And if, depending on the grade level, you may be able to do small group work for some of that problem solving activities, like a 5th grade. Maybe they can work together. Like, I don't know, I'm going to say your class is 20. It could be more, it could be less, but you've got 4 groups of 5, and those 5 kids are trying to solve something together. And as a problem solving piece, I'm not suggesting that my kids are going to go outside, because with the littler ones, they may not have a safe place to go outside. So the ball that I would be sending home for a home kit would be, I'm going to call them foam oversized tennis trainer balls. So they're not as dense as a tennis ball, but they do have some bounce. So my challenge is, I mean, I'm going to be very clear with families that if we pivot and we're online, there needs to be a space. They need to find a space, help their child find a space. It's going to be a family activity where they can do some kind of activity in that space where they're not going to break something. And they know that's just like they're going to set up their desk for their, you know, homeroom activity, so that there's always a designated space. I'm not going to send kids off and out and then come back. When I say they're going to go do an activity, it would be still internal to the school, unless internal to the house. Sorry, I'm hoping we're in school. Internal to their home, depending on the family. Like, I have some families that have a yard and they would love to go outside and have their child do something, and they have the ability to stay home with their child, and they're both not off working. Like, I don't even know how that's going to work next year when families have to go back to work and they can't, you know, in the spring, nobody was going to work. So there were people at home, there were adults at home. And I recognize that it may be an older sibling that's overseeing it. And that older sibling is also trying to do their schoolwork. So kindergarten schoolwork may fall to the wayside, but I don't know how it's going to work. It's just the way I have it visualized. I may test it. I actually may try to test it out with some faculty members' kids so that I know some of the pitfalls beforehand. But my intent was to stay in the house. I don't want to send them out on the streets or in the backyard unless the family's okay with that. So for a small ball, I can still do dribbling. We dribbled with sock balls. It's not pretty, it's not great, but it is working on some of those skills. And I think we have to transition from some of those traditional things that we taught and try to find out other ways to teach some of those things. I know that doesn't give you a lot of guidance, and I can't even imagine being on Google Classroom, Google Meet from 8 to 3 every day with all those classes. So I would tap into some of your other departmentals as well. Like, what are they going to do for 40 minutes? Maybe they've come up with something creative to make that work. They may have some ideas.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sorry.
I was just one other quick thing. I don't know. I think that I heard that Google is going to start out with like little breakout rooms. And I don't know if you had mentioned that, Betty Ann, as far as like the kids collaborating, and that would give you a little bit of maybe a break from the screen. But to be on live as a teacher doing direct instruction all day long is impossible. And so I think breaking it up as much as you can so the kids are doing their independent work and you can then regroup. You need to preserve your own health and sanity through the whole process. So the kids need their breaks from the screen, and so do the teachers. This is the longest I've been like this, and I'm struggling. So I can't imagine doing it all day long.
And I think I'm going to jump into that self-care. We didn't even touch about self-care for us. We've talked about it for our students. But we have to be really, really clear on our office hours when we are virtual and distance learning. There's that notion that we are 24/7, send an email, we're going to respond right away. And some of this online courses that I'm taking is that the clear our expectations and our that we can be consistent with families, that like from 8 to 3 I'm available by email, and then 6 to 7 is my office hours. I'm just making up things, but that, so families know that at 8 o'clock at night, you are not going to respond, because I think we're in this situation where everybody thinks everybody's just home. So like, why didn't you get back to me? You waited a whole night, and it creates that misperception, miscommunication, ill will, hey, Miss Fish never gets back to us. She doesn't reply to our emails. Whereas Megara, she'll reply in 5 minutes. So what's wrong with me? And it makes that be really, really clear with your expectations for students and families about how they're going to get a hold of you and what time. And I think it will help us with our self-care. And I've been really trying to turn the computer off, which is not easy, including a phone, and spend time at the, thank you for the clap, I saw someone clapping there, and get outside. And I try to get a walk and a bike ride in every day. If there's anything, I've been taking longer bike rides and longer walks through all of this. I know that'll change when we go back, but I'm going to try to hold, we need to do it for ourselves. If we get burnt out in those first 2 weeks, we're not going to be beneficial for anybody. So take care of yourself.
I don't see anyone with their hands up, but there were some more questions in the chat. One was, without being able to use equipment in my district right now, any ideas on how to make play areas for K-5? Painting lines isn't an option with budget right now. There were some suggestions in the chat on how to get spray paint and stuff from like Home Depot and such, but they were just wondering if you had any other suggestions.
I'm hoping there's some other people out there that might have some good ideas, because I haven't had to tap into that yet.
Yeah, I agree. Is there anyone out there that'd like to share? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to share. I ended up putting a few ideas in the chat. One of the things that, and the Home Depot and Lowe's, for many years, they have been very generous to educators, especially physical educators. So if you go in and talk to the store managers and tell them exactly what you're wanting, most likely they're going to be able to donate to you. And just, canvass your area, go to one store, go to another store. And also PTOs and PTAs, they'll be more likely to fund something if they know that it's going to be used for the entire school. So you're a physical education teacher, you're saying, I'm going to see every single kid. Tap into those resources too, because they'll most likely help you out.
That's a great, suggestion. Great. Anyone else? Anything else?
There was, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
There was another question on any scheduling suggestions on how to limit contact with students. We typically see our students 2 times per week. Our principal is concerned about us being in contact with all our students each week. This might not be down to the physical educator. This might be up to the principal or school board, but if you have any suggestions.
Well, our district is toying with the idea of having some type of a rotation. So for example, we've got 2 PE teachers in our building. So I might see the 5th grade every day for 2 weeks. She might see the 4th grade every day for 2 weeks, and then art and music and so on. So that way, instead of being exposed to all of the kids in the school in 1 week, we're only exposed to or exposing 1 grade level. And then it rotates out. I don't know if that's the direction that we'll go in, but that is something that's been discussed. And although I hate the fact that then the kids would not be getting PE on the days that they're doing other things, I think in these times, we have to just err on the side of safety. And if it means reducing the number of contacts between staff and students, it might be one of those, I don't know, kind of sacrifices that we would have to make.
That's how our school made the shift we are, I will see first and second grade for the first month, 4 to 5 weeks. So, and one other departmental. So every grade level, the departmentals will rotate through, but every homeroom class will only see 2 departmentals to kind of hopefully help from that cross-contamination spread, community spread, whatever, however you want to phrase it. But yes, it does change it in terms of I'm seeing them every single day for 5 weeks as opposed to a rotating schedule, but that is how our school has decided to move forward on that. We'll see if that stays the same. And, you know, that was not my decision. So that's kind of out of our hands. And I think the biggest thing is we have to be patient and flexible. And we have to realize it might not be ideal, but this is a situation that none of us have trained for, ever thought we'd lived through. And ultimately, I'm just thrilled to see my kids every day for 5 weeks and get them as much movement, joy, and hopefully at the end of those 5 weeks, when I put a choice board up for activities they can do at home on their own, they will be trained to go there and seek that information out, and they'll continue to do some kind of physical movement.
Joe?
There was one, this is probably more of a personal preference and kind of open for everyone, but is there a certain type of mask that you enjoyed wearing, or that you think you'll enjoy wearing more while you're teaching?
I'm still testing masks out. I think you really need to check with your district first to see if some are approved and some are not. So we cannot use anything that's like a bandana type that ties on. And I'm not sure if they're going to allow the gaiters, the neck gaiter kind, because they have a tendency to slide down. So it may have to be one that's like this. And I think every district, and even within maybe districts, every school might be a little bit different. The school doctor had recommended some from some of the sports models because, you know, for breathability. But when I went after that meeting to look, everything's sold out. It's not coming till the middle of September for some of them. So I'm back to square one, and I would love any suggestions because I haven't found the ideal one yet. I do go to a couple of handmade ones from local vendors that can put the filter
in. Joe, I'd like to hear from not just the panelists, but from anyone that's on. We've talked about all virtual. We've talked about, and we know what it's like in person. But the hybrid, nobody has talked about the hybrid. How hybrid would work. I mean, it's going to be different for everyone. So maybe somebody out there might share, or our panelists can share what the hybrid would look like in their district.
I can at least talk about what our district is proposing. The hybrid model right now is going to be students come Monday, Tuesday, or they come Thursday, Friday. Wednesday is that day where it's sort of at home, everybody is, and that's the day where they're going to go in and, you know, teachers will have meetings, but they're also going to do the cleaning of the schools. So it's kind of like Monday, Tuesday, clean the school, Thursday, Friday, then they'll clean the school over the weekend before it comes back in again. So essentially they're thinking we're going to have class on Monday and Tuesday, and then we won't see the kids again until the following Monday, Tuesday. But we're also looking into that cohort model where we'll see those same kids for 6 weeks, and then they're going to rotate out to another special.
That's great. Yeah. Anyone else? Anyone else? That's great. That's a great idea.
My school is asking us to come up with both virtual and in-person lessons for every grade level. And we're doing the cohort model. So I'm worried that I'm going to run out of content really quickly because it's 20 days in a row with the same in-person kids, but then also putting out virtual content, which seems a lot.
Jim? Courtney?
We're going to do the same thing where the students come Monday, Tuesday, and then everybody's home on Wednesday, or Monday, Tuesday, everybody's home on Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, the second half of the classrooms would come. I'm also following my normal schedule, as in regular school. So some of these kids I won't ever see but virtually. And I'm expected to teach the same content. So then I'm coming into the problem of how do I assess the students the same way? Is grading going to be the same for all students? Expectations the same? So I don't know if anybody's in the same boat. If you have any suggestions, if you're going to see all the kids, like I said, I'm going to miss 15 sections. So 15, about 300 kids, I'm not going to see in person ever, only virtually. So, and again, I was the one who asked the question about going outside. So our administration isn't really the best to kind of talk to about this. So I didn't know if there were any suggestions of how I could say, listen, can we go and meet the kids, like you're saying, 3-4 weeks and then rotate through? So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
Courtney, I have a question. Are the students allowed to go outside for recess?
As of right now, everything's in the classroom.
Okay.
Breakfast, lunch, recess, music, art, library, PE, everything's in the classroom.
I'm hoping all those classrooms have windows that can open to the outside air.
Me as well. They do it. And I'm in New York, so, and I know a lot of you are in New York. That's why I was saying I have the space to go outside. They don't want the kids moving in the hallways.
Courtney,
And all.
I'm sorry.
No. And do any of these classrooms have doors that lead to the outside?
No.
No.
Courtney, my question is, what are they doing about support services? Are they pushing into the like ENL and resource rooms, speech, or pushing into classrooms?
OT, PT. Yes. So, I mean, I've gotten to the point, and I'm in a large district, and it's just frustrating that you are cautioned to not make suggestions for fear that you'll get backlash. So it's not the best situation. So I'm trying to stay positive and make the best out of it that I can, because I know this is only temporary, but I want to make it the best for the kids going forward.
I have a quick comment. Courtney and Kevin, my school in Arlington, Massachusetts is in the same boat as you, where we're leaning toward hybrid. There's a school committee tonight, a meeting, and they're making their decision.
Us too.
To look like Monday, Tuesday is half of the class of 24, and then the other half would come on that Thursday, Friday. But there's a lot of talk that the gym is going to be used as a cafeteria, because our cafeteria currently is not large enough to have the kids sitting 6 feet apart without masks. So they're going to need another space, and also for storage, because they can't have all of the desks and bookshelves and everything that were originally in the classroom. So they need that breakout space in the gym and the art room. So it sounds like PE, art, music, and library are going to be virtual regardless of their decision, whether or not they go hybrid or all remote. So I likely will not even have the gym and will be teaching remotely. But I think I agree with you, Courtney, where I am going to go with my same schedule, where I have 7 classes a day, each for 40 minutes. And I'm probably going to be having all my classes on a regular day, which is 8 to 2:30 in front of the screen. But I'm going to see those Thursday, Friday kids always virtually. And I guess I would do the same with my Monday, Tuesday if I'm all virtual. But I understand what you mean, Courtney. Like if you're in the building, you're always only going to see those Thursday, Friday kids virtually, and the other kids on Monday, Tuesday are going to be in person. And that's very difficult to be able to teach the same thing.
Correct. That's how I feel. And it's also, I know that it's going to come down to some of the parents are going to be like, well, I want my kids to see you. I don't want them to just see you on a computer or see the assignments that you posted or videos. And it's an obstacle that I'm trying to figure out how to get around and get past.
Mm-hmm.
And Christine, do your kids have a choice? Are they having a choice? Do the parents have a choice of whether they're going virtually or in person?
They do, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
It's similar to us as well. We figured there's we put a survey out, about 20 to 25% are going virtual. Okay.
I think that's about ours too. I think there's going to be quite a bit of parents who do not send their children to school, but there's quite a bit of parents who do want their child back. And our district did the same thing. They gave a survey out to parents and a survey out to teachers. And there's a big push for parents to want their children back in school. And there's a lot of teachers who do not want to go back. They just do not feel comfortable going back. So.
Yeah, I know what you mean. One of the things that I thought about with our model was, if I have a typical class of 20 kids, let's say, I'm just rounding, and 25% are virtual, that means there's about 15 or 16 kids, and then half the kids come on Monday, Tuesday, half the kids come on Thursday, Friday. That's like 8 to 10 kids. That at least made me feel a little bit better of going in person because it's only 8 to 10 kids. Now, can I use my gym? No one said anything so far. The mention of going outside is great, but then what do you do when you have to, it's raining or it's snowing? Then you got to go inside. But then again, I'm only worrying about 8 to 10 kids. But you're right. That's the in-school kids, the kids that are out of school who are that virtual piece to it. I think what they're setting up is called this virtual learning academy, where it's going to pretty much be kind of like what we did in the spring. And that's the disadvantage of it, and that might be, after a few weeks, some parents go, well, maybe I want to send, so I always said that there's a million wrong answers and no right one. It's just the way it is.
It's a lose-lose situation.
I also have something else to say. Where I work, I share the gym with another school. So on top of me thinking of assignments and everything, I have to work with the middle school if we have to share the gym. And I'm not sure if that's with everyone else. So my main concern is that either I only get the gym once a week, and then every other day I have to push into a classroom or it's virtually, or that's just my stress level right now, is wondering how I'm going to connect with the other school, because I'm in contact with that teacher and he's like, I don't know what we're doing and I don't know what I'm doing. So it's like, what's going on here? And I'm not sure if everyone else, if there's other teachers that are doing that have to do that too with another school in the building. So I'm literally at a loss.
You're New York City DOE, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So probably most of the other, if you're not New York City DOE, you probably don't experience that type of a teaching scenario where you've got like one building with 3 different schools housed in it and a lot of shared space. So I'm wondering if like your principal would even be able to tell you how that is being done as far as the shared spaces go.
As of right now, we as we're having an optional meeting today due to the budget cuts and everything. So my principal has stated that teachers do not have to come to this meeting since it's optional. But I'm gonna go just to calm my nerves down and everything. And then they're doing a school meeting with the parents on Thursday. This Thursday.
Go to every meeting that applies to you. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm going to every meeting. I'm regardless if it's optional or not, I'm still gonna go.
Yeah, be that squeaky wheel.
Some type of idea.
And I would definitely check with that principal because they're dealing with so much stuff. They may not have even thought that you're sharing a space with another school. Like they're dealing with your school and trying to get things in place and may have just totally lost sight. I share spaces across all 3 divisions, and it's been very thought out and like I'm like, if you use this space for that, then we can't use it for this. So make sure you're contacting them. And then I was just going to go back to Courtney, who, if I think I followed right, you're going to push into the classroom, and then the rest of the kids are going to be at home. So your classroom space is going to be small. Like, you won't see them. You'll be teaching them virtually. So your classroom space is going to be limited. It's almost like the kids that are at home having a small space. So maybe some of the similar things can be, may not have to duplicate as much. I don't know, just a thought.
Can I just break in? We have 2 minutes to go. Yeah, it was, I think the dialogue and discussion was just, everything was great. I just thought, I know we could stay here all day probably and share, but Megara and Betty Ann, do you have like maybe a minute or so some final comments before we stop?
Super fast. I was just curious. I think somebody in the chat I saw said that they are working in 2 different buildings, and I'm curious about what, you know, the districts are doing to prevent spread, you know, by being split and having to travel between different buildings. I don't know. I don't know if that question could be answered, but it's just something to think about.
Okay, probably a chat answer. How about you, Betty Ann? You have any final comment?
I would just say, you know your kids the best. Take care of yourself. Don't try to overdo. There's so many great ideas out there. Pick what's going to work for you. Don't try to do everything all at once.
You know, I think either Eastern District or SHAPE is going to come out with virtual best practices, because we have best practices now, but I think there's going to be a need for virtual best practices down the road. So that's something that we should be thinking about. That we should all think about. But thank you all for coming. Thank you we give the panelists a round of applause. Thank you for that. But thank you everyone for giving up your day today. And I hope you got something to take back to your schools with today. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
This is just a quick announcement. There is a health and adapted session at 11:15 and 1:30 respectively. You should use the same links as originally posted. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Everybody.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Good luck.